Good evening. Nice to see you. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, journalists, people who are putting stuff out so you can get a sense of what's going on in the Bronx. And also in our second segment, we generally do things like arts and culture. And there is an absolutely wonderful arts, and not only arts, actually, a whole street fair coming to Riverdale, and we're going to talk about that in our second segment. But in our first segment, let's get right to it. He's always on our show, and I love that. It is David Brand. He covers housing for Gothamist. Nice to see you, Dave.
Thanks for having me back, Gary.
Dave, you wrote a story, and you know that it raised my eyebrows because it was the headline was "New Bronx Program Links Local Landlords with Homeless New Yorkers." And I think that's interesting because one of the things that I have heard very, very recently is that um, people are saying, you know what, we need to build housing, but we really need to deal with the empty apartments and other spaces that we can put people in already without, taking 3 years to build a building.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about what this is about. This is a Bronx Works program, isn't it?
Right. So BronxWorks is partnering with JP Morgan Chase, which is funding this program. So they're helping landlords, especially smaller property owners throughout the Bronx, rent out their apartments to people leaving homeless shelters with housing vouchers. This is from the city's City FEPS housing voucher program. So, people have apartments that they want to rent out. Uh, People with housing vouchers have a guaranteed income stream here, a guaranteed rental stream paid for by the city. So not only is it good for people leaving shelter, it's good business, I think, for landlords. And so this is just trying to get through some of the bureaucratic obstacles that can make the process take long, that can make approvals a little more complicated for owners. And so it's supposed to streamline that stuff.
How impactful, I guess, is the word. How impactful do you think this will be? Listen, if because a number that you had in your article said it aims to assist 100 households. We've got what 65,000 homeless people. So I don't want to say for those 100 households that's significant. It's a start. Do you think it's a concept that can fly, that can move to to really do something in the city?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not a panacea. There's like 16,000 people in shelters right now with housing vouchers who are trying to find a place. This is going to target 100 households. So it's not going to like solve the homelessness crisis, but it's going to work for some number of people. And I think I could see it helping people have more confidence in this program, and people who, aren't renting to people with housing vouchers could inspire them to do that more and to show like, see, this could happen, and it's a good source of income, and you're also doing something good for the city overall.
Your article reported that J.P. Morgan Chase put up almost $500 million, $450,000. What does that money go toward? I mean, are they going to like build out things? I mean, I thought that was interesting. After reading it, I said, well, that's interesting. But what are they going to pay for, and how does that help this process?
Yeah, it's almost like, well, why not put that right into housing or something? But I guess it's building out the like work, like hiring staff and counselors to make this work, uh, workshops to educate people, I guess different types of training materials and stuff. And then I think that's over a few years. So I don't think that's like one lump sum of 450 grand, but I think it's going to
Right.
pay salaries for people to take on this work.
One of the things you wrote was that they find small repairs could be between $3,000 and $5,000.
Mhm, mhm.
What do you think about this? Now you've covered this extensively, and I'm sure it's always in the back of your mind. This whole thing with the city of yes, and the mayor says, okay, if you've got a home and you may have a basement apartment, rather than hiding it, we're going to help you build that out. Is this the kind of thing that if it expands, if it hangs on, it could be part of that whole, part of City of Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, if the city were to make it easier for people to bring their basement apartments, like up to code, making them safe and legal and affordable to do that, then that's an option for housing people with vouchers or for people in need of affordable housing for sure.
Yeah, we got to do something. And to me, again, the article that you wrote that we just talked about is innovative, and that I like that, and it's also using existing facilities rather than the whole specter of trying to get people to build.
Always
Just
hard.
just to show you how clever I am, this interfaces perfectly with another article you wrote, which is New York's basement legalization plan inexplicably inexplicably explicitly misses parts of the city that need it most. Um, let's talk about that plan. That was what I was referring to as part of the city of yes. But why does it miss its mark, and where do we need stuff that we're not going to get through this program?
I was going to say that's quite the segue, Gary. So this is
Well, that's from my radio disc jockey days when I move one record to the other. Go ahead.
so this is it's related to City of Yes, separate but kind of would complement, I guess, some of these proposals. So this is state law that would make it possible for New York City to set its own rules around legalizing basement apartments. And right now, what supporters of legalizing basement apartments say is that there's a lot of laws at the state level that make that almost impossible for homeowners to do, or just like extremely expensive, that don't really have anything to do with the safety of the apartments. And so right now there are tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of basement apartments where people are living, but those apartments are illegal. So there's really
Right.
no incentive for landlords to or homeowners to come forward and try to bring them up to code, because they could just get shut down and then they can get fined. So right now they're in the shadows. So supporters of making them legal say we need to bring them out of the shadows. We need clear guidelines for how to make them safe, clear regulations, clear enforcement here at the city level. So the state allowed that, but only in a handful of sections of the city, and they're excluding the parts of the city where there are the most basement apartments.
Sorry for laughing. It's not funny. So I'm just thinking of our home borough, the Bronx. I mean, let's say up in Williamsbridge and Wakefield, there are many apartments of that nature. I could think of a number of other areas. Soundview has a number of apartments like that. I mean, there are a lot of neighborhoods like it. I don't know. It does not compute. I mean, in other words, if you were going to do it, why not do it in those neighborhoods? Do we know why, or we got to get it up, bring some state legislators on and find the answer to that question?
I think that would help to
That would.
bring a state leg, but I think a lot of state legislators wanted to carve out the districts that they represent. There's a lot of opposition to this because one, people could say it's not safe. You're never going to make these apartments safe. That's one argument. Another is, what does this do for the infrastructure if we are doubling the amount of people living in a
Right.
neighborhood? But in reality, people are already living in these places, and they're just a lot of them are dangerous, and we saw
So,
that when people died.
well, so here's the question, and it is a reasonable question through this whole idea of the basement apartments. So, if they're living in the apartments, they're illegal for a reason, and the reason is because they're not safe. You may not have enough facility to really do. I mean, there's 100 things that are involved. But if you just kind of wipe it clean and make them all legal apartments, well, then you've just made an illegal, unsafe situation legal. So in order to make them legal, you really need enough inspectors, and goodness knows we've been through this dozens of times. We don't have enough housing inspectors in the city,
Yeah.
and so where are we going? Where do you see an end to this? A meeting between the mayor and governor to solve it, or who knows?
Well, I guess we'll see what happens in these 15 community districts. Like you mentioned, there is going to be need to be more like regulatory, I don't know, like inspectors you mentioned, and more regulations, ways to enforce that. So let's see if they could do it in the community districts where they're allowing this, including the 4 in the Bronx that they've approved this new program for, and then it'll be up to the city to set those rules. And then yeah, we'll see what happens next. If the mayor is promoting the City of Yes plan that would allow for homeowners to add an additional unit in many cases to their properties, and that could include basement apartments in some situations. So yeah, I guess we're going to see how this goes, and if they can enforce it, and if people are actually going to be making them safer.
I didn't realize there were 4 neighborhoods in the Bronx, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you remember which 4 they are?
Right now, no.
Oh, okay. That's fair. I didn't
Because
remember them either.
Northeast Bronx. So I
Northeast.
think,
Well, this is
yeah,
why I said
yeah,
Wakefield and
yeah.
Williamsbridge, et cetera. Listen, one other thing. We got about 2 minutes. Um, Another story you wrote: New York rents are rising 7 times faster than wages. That is a very serious thing. We could go back to the rent is too damn high. Let's see. Average wages in New York City increased about 1.2% last year, but median rents surged 8.6% last year. That is a very difficult thing. So, I guess it's 2 different economies you got to deal with. You got to deal with minimum wage and wages, and then of course you got to deal with the price of housing. I mean, I don't know how to resolve it. Okay, Dave, resolve it, please.
I thought you weren't going to put me on the spot. You said,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, I mean, it's pretty grim. Wages going up, that's a good thing. Rents going up even more, that's not a good thing. And so, that was a report from the apartment listings platform Street Easy. The economists there say the answer to that is to just build more housing, make more supply, and that could drive down
Drive down
rents.
the rents.
I think we'll see the impact of the state's new good cause eviction protections, which set uh, thresholds for how much landlords can raise rents without a justification for going
Although
higher.
let's be honest, I mean, I've interviewed a number of elected officials about it. That's not the end all and be all, and they didn't believe they got everything they wanted on good cause eviction. And I think it left out, I don't have the number in front of me, many apartments.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of carve outs there. So, and I think more of what I've been reporting on is all the gray areas that tenants are still questioning if they're covered or not, and how exactly they would challenge an increase. And so, some number of people are going to be protected, but I think it's going to be confusing.
Yeah, not as widespread as people would like. One last point on this whole thing of rents, which I thought was fascinating, because of course we think New York is the most expensive and have the largest discrepancy in wages and income. But you said it's worse elsewhere, specifically in Florida.
Yeah, parts of Florida where rents have gone up like almost double in some cities. You see it, Tampa is 50% increase in just the past 5 years. Meanwhile, wages have risen at a much lower
Much
rate than
lower rate.
here in New York City. So Florida, everyone thinks New Yorkers are moving to Florida. The grass is always greener, I think, because the
Bring,
rents are surging there and the
yeah,
incomes are lower.
bring your wallet. If you're going to go. Listen, David, we'll probably solve the housing problem in the next couple of weeks, so we won't
We'll check
need you
back. Yeah.
anymore. Yeah. Listen, David Brand, who does housing for Gothamist, I don't know what we'd do without you. We wouldn't know anything. We
Thanks a
do
lot, Gary.
appreciate your time always. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then, yes, we're going to go to a block party in Riverdale. It's coming up this weekend. That is going to be a lot of fun. My wife is going to be there too. Don't go away.